we actually made the deal larger. So we stepped into that market. We had a huge credit loss. It was just poorly managed before. They actually had a third-party manager. That third-party manager did not focus in the manufactured housing space.
We're starting the culture change, right? Or the culture enhancement, right? And that's not done overnight.
And we're back on the Mobile Home Park Exchange Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Rizzo. Joining me, of course, my co-host, Eric Busuttil. Eric, how are you doing?
Doing good today, Frank.
Good. You look very ready to go and jump right into it today.
No time today. No time to waste.
We're here today, and we're going to do a segment called Trailer Park Turnaround. We always look at these as communities, but typically when we go into one of these communities that we acquire, they are the prototypical trailer park. One-star communities really looking to do a heavy lift and turnaround and getting a one-star park up to 3.5, 4 stars, which is a process. And it's a process that we've been doing for the last 9 years, and countless communities that we've been through. And we want to highlight a community that you've probably, and we hope that you watched the video on YouTube, Trailer Park Turnaround, about Highland Village, which was a community that we purchased 11 months ago. We're actually at the 11-month mark, and we're ahead of schedule. And we've talked about it, how this has been one of the fastest, or if not the fastest turnaround we've had in the 9 years that we've been doing this, Eric. So we wanted to highlight it. And if you guys have watched that video, kind of go through a little bit of it to discuss what was done, how we did it, how we broke down that deal, and where we are today, right? To give everybody kind of a real world look at one park and that entire transition from a trailer park to really a resident community.
Like anything else, Frank, I think yes, we did get it turned around pretty quickly through phase one at least. And like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get at it, right? And I think that is there's a good case of that here. One of the most important things for anyone looking to turn a park around the way we do is you got to have a good team, right? And, especially a team on site. You got to find that mayor. And, in this particular case, we ended up working with the prior owner, which is a great guy. And he was a key component in getting us to where we are today and, helping us put our plan in place and everything in motion. He did a great job at that. He's been there for a while. And, his classic comment of his is, we did in 6 months, our 6-month vision was his 5-year vision. And, but we did a great job with it.
And Jerry has been an integral part of that team. And we'll talk about how that was really a key component, having the right team in place. To step back and just to give everybody a little background on the community or the communities. This was an off-market deal, and we've typically found we've been able to procure throughout our history, a number of off-market communities, and it was our first entry into a new market. Right, we were not in the North Carolina market prior to this. We found this deal off-market, or this opportunity off-market. We had been in negotiation with the owner. Deal fell through, but we had done our diligence beforehand. So this is a key point where we knew the location, we knew the market, where we were comfortable, in the MSA, right, and in the economics of that area where we felt that where that was comfortable. When their initial, deal fell through, we were able to step back in, and that gave us the advantage of having done that groundwork, is to offer the sellers at the time, Jerry and his partner, a quick closing, right? That we had the ability, that we knew we had done our homework, we were ready to step forward into that market. So we had done some of that diligence beforehand. But, maybe you want to go over a little bit about our first look at the property.
needed a lot of work. You know, the layout of the community was, great. Not like many communities that we've dealt with. And most communities are, as I've mentioned in other episodes, built over time. And there's no, plan that was in place. You had a farmer who put a couple mobile homes on a piece of land. And, before you know it, he's got 10 mobile homes, and that evolves into, 5 years later, and, he's got 50, 60 homes. And that's how a mobile home park typically gets started. And when you're doing it like that, there's no exact layout or plan in place. And this park had a wonderful layout and plan. I mean, it's sectioned in pods. So that was one of the most appealing things to me. And in our diligence and in speaking with the prior owners, we realized that every single lot was pretty much exactly the same. Where the septic tanks were, where the water lines were, which is key. And, it's just great thing to have. You're not looking for water lines. You're not digging up septic tanks.
Saves a lot of time.
Saves a lot of time and ultimately a lot of money. And, even though the park, was a 1.5 star, the infrastructure of the park was still in very good shape.
Correct.
Right? Which is also, a huge component.
And then in having those, and this is why, even if you have a deal that comes in from the broker, it's great to have that owner conversation in the conversation and finding their motivations of what they were looking to do. We did find out that they actually owned a second park in that town, and we actually made the deal larger. So we stepped into that market. And you're talking about
and just mention, Frank, this was our first time entering into North Carolina.
Correct.
First property.
Yes. We ended up getting both of the parks. Yep. So in total, we acquired 175 lots. There was in place about 80 homes on site. So there were two essentially half-filled communities. And we paid $1.575 for both. So 175 lots, our acquisition cost was $1.575, which gave us a great basis. But again, two half-filled parks. They were both about 50% filled. The larger park, which was 134 units, which is Highland Village, that was a tad under 50%. Physically occupied, right? The economic occupancy, the residents in there were a lot less. Also, key point, when we looked at that, the rent roll recurring charges, and this is important, we'll get to it later, was about a little over $10,000 a month, which is what they were billing out, and their collections were absolutely putrid. I mean, our first month there, I think, and they were having a problem with collection. Their first month was about $5,700 a month. So we had a huge credit loss. We knew that going in, and we had they had very, very under market rents. So that being said, building the team, going into a new market, building a team was a huge point. So
you got to get a plan in place, right? And, now that we, after realizing that we had two parks down there, we ended up, we were originally just in contract on one park. We ended up buying the second park as well. And when we had both of these parks, we looked at it as, hey, does it make sense to compete with ourselves inside of a city? So our plan was to, move over the existing homes from the smaller community, which has a sewer system already brought to that piece of land. We moved those homes out, and we brought in, I think we got in about 20 homes, inclusive of a few homes from, new tenants that moved their own homes in there. So we got in about 20 homes, which is a big project. Every home's got to be connected to the septic, new water lines got to be ran to it. We did all new pedestals on each lots. These pedestals were old, so we had to put new pedestals in, remove the old pedestals, do some work to these homes, clean them up, stairs, skirting. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of planning. And some of these homes had people in it. So, we had to put them in hotels and make sure that, when the homes got moved over, the connections were done pretty quickly, right? So we could get them back out of the hotels and into the homes. So that was most of the work. Roads here, needed to be done. I mean,
they were probably some of the worst roads that we've ever come across. I mean, there was craters in there that would just it actually looked like meteors probably come into those roads. I mean, they were just huge divots in those roads, and straight across in each, because the way the park is laid out, it's essentially 3 streets, and there just wasn't a street in there that just didn't need to be repaired. So, in doing that, obviously you help facilitate getting in those homes into those roads. But I mean, what was the process in terms of, just maybe you want to let people know, because in the video, if you look at the documentary, you'll see the roads being done. But it wasn't as easy as snapping a finger over there.
A lot of planning. Obviously you'll work with the low hanging fruit first, right? The homes that were empty, right? Those are the first homes that we moved over. And, we had a handful of people in some of these homes, and the roads were, it was a big job. I mean, this wasn't a small job. I mean, we had about 4 different bids. Some of the local companies that we dealt with were, companies that were union companies, used to doing highways. Over the last couple of years, I mean, things were pretty busy. So these companies were busy. They had jobs booked. Like I said, a lot of highway work, some of the companies that we used. We ended up using a company that we always use, or we've used on most of our projects, and they're a company out of South Georgia, and we've used them,
10 times.
Probably about 10 times, and it's a little bit far for them, but ultimately, they always do a good job. They always come in on budget, and,
Well, that's part of the key, I think, of when you're building out your team and having vendors and vendor relationships that are good, and maintaining those relationships, because we have used them about 10 times, and we'll give them a plug. That's Professional Paving and Shepherd Paving, which is a family-owned operation. And you could just tell with them, they're about the relationship and building their I mean, that's how they've built their business through 3 generations. And they were willing to travel for us, right? And having done the work before, we had a budgeted amount that we needed to be in to get this work done, to get this project where it needed to be, and the roads being the big part of it, right? Because everybody wants to see, nice, new, clean roads. And that's a huge value add for residents in the community, and a marketing piece to get people to move in. And they were able to come in pretty much, I think they came in on budget, right? Exactly where we needed them to be for how we planned out the project originally. And I think they said the next time they're going to give us a free volleyball stand that they're going to build out for us, which was great. But what would you say, Eric, if you're out there and you're buying a community, roads are done, that's an easy optic to do, but we ended up having 80 homes now on site. 6 or 7 of them we had a demo. They were just unsavable. There was a number of homes that the community owned, or they were park-owned homes. What do you do, especially because the interior of the homes were nice, but the homes on the exterior, they were dated, right? So what are some of the things, if you come into a situation like that, what were some of the things that, maybe some of the things that we do, or that you would recommend for other people to do?
Well, again, our plan of the park is to, ultimately bring in newer homes, right? So, when you're bringing in newer homes, and, the other homes that are there already are, 70s, 80s, 90s model homes, and, they're, worn, you got to lift the appearance of these homes. You can start with, simple as power washing these homes, painting these homes. I mean, some of the homes we did new vinyl siding on these homes, new vinyl siding. Obviously, if roofs need work, you need to do the roofs. New skirting. I mean, a lot of this skirting out there is got holes in it. You got to clean up the exterior of these homes is the main thing. New stairs, right? You got to clean up the appearance of the homes if you're going to lift the standards of the community.
Correct. And you can't go to somebody else. Well, we found you can't go to somebody else and ask them to do something that you haven't done on the inventory that you have originally. So before I can ask anybody else, we found before we can ask anybody else in that community to raise those standards, we have to set the standards. So that's part of changing that community culture. And, you spearheaded that, and we've got, we had about 45 of those homes done in pretty rapid fashion. And again, that goes to, building that team and having the right people in place. And you alluded to the former owner stayed on board, right? One of the former owners stayed on board because they had a vision, and we were able to share that vision that we had with them. And, him being, wanting to see it through, right? And not just, it wasn't transactional for him. It was, he had a vested interest in seeing that community go through, and we were able to come in and supply the needed capital to help get it there. And he helped oversee that, which was key. But what was something else that, just maybe a tip that you would say from that experience in terms of getting those 45 homes turned around as quickly as you did? If you had to say something and say, maybe this is something you should look at.
Realize what it is that you're doing in cleaning up these homes is, like you said, Frank, we're lifting our own standards of the community, but, we're starting the culture change, right? Or the culture enhancement, right? And that's not done overnight, right? It takes a little bit of time. People need to see that you're you're lifting the standards before they lift the standards. There was junk everywhere in this property. There was a lot of junk all over the park. If you go there today, people are keeping up with their lots. If there's junk, put somewhere, we're getting rid of it. But ultimately, I think it's, just finding the right resident base. Once you start turning these homes around.
And that's a great segue, because while you're doing that work, right? And so now you have, you purchased your park, and as you're doing, or you purchased that community, and as you're doing that work, you're doing that work not in a vacuum, right? It's very visible. Right, so we happen to have a site here that was right at a crossway. Right, so we had visibility on two main thoroughfares, and wide open, because as you said before, it was laid out as a community. It was master planned, and there's great street visibility on both sides. So it's 30 acres, both sides. You got great street visibility, and you have two distinct roads leading into the community, right? Two distinct streets leading into the community. And what that gave us was an opportunity to use the landscape as the marketing. So as the work is getting done, people are watching it and viewing it, but we were able to get a lot of signage out there. And I give this tip to people. If you acquire one of these communities, which has a lot of space, right? And it's not set back, right? And you're on a main thoroughfare, you have to use the landscape to get as much signage as possible, and because it's the most cost-effective marketing that you'll ever do. So we have at the centerpiece, right? At the corner, signage, at the roads, signage, in between, flood of flags. And as that was happening, before we really started a, social media marketing campaign or an online marketing campaign, because the work hadn't progressed, we were getting an influx of people who wanted to be in the community because they were able to see the work.
Well, Frank, that's always been our best marketing, I feel. It's, even though we do advertising, we do online marketing, it's, people seeing what you're doing. And yes, that property was in a great location. We get tons of compliments regularly from city officials, people inside the community, people outside of the community. In these towns, people remember that community probably from when it started, and they've seen it kind of dissipate over time, and they notice what's been done there, and word flies, right? So people are happy what we've done, and the location of that property and the signage, is probably been our best marketing tool for it.
And I think the biggest sign of that happening was we had a resident that came in that moved in, and you kind of alluded to it before. She brought in a brand new 2021 home that she had purchased, and she moved it in before we even started any of our outboard marketing. Just having watched the work and seen what was going on, she moved one of her brand new homes, her brand new home, right into our community. She selected a lot, she moved it in, she connected, she did everything because she wanted to be part of it. Where even in speaking to the former owner, that hadn't happened in over 10 years. So it was the first time in over 10 years that somebody wanted to move in their own home from the outside, which I thought was a huge vindication of the progress that we were making, and also a huge vindication of the work that our team was doing on the ground. Like they were, we having that team on the ground, I think really helped us along. Now that was completed, right? We still had at that point, we were transitioning. We still had, we still had residents that obviously we talked from day one. They weren't. We had a huge credit loss, right? It was just poorly managed before. They actually had a third-party manager. That third-party manager did not focus in the manufactured housing space. So that manager was really not doing a terrific job there. I mean, obviously, if you're getting about 45% collection loss or credit loss, your manager's something that you got to review at. But we had to go through the process of kind of transitioning those residents and getting people on board who will value the work that was done. How did you see that, in terms of that marketing effort, and how quickly people have kind of moved into that community? I mean, we went from like 45 residents to, I think, how many vacant homes do we have left now?
I think right now we have somewhere along the lines of about 80 homes in there. And I believe we only have 10 to 12 available homes right now, of which we're working with somebody right now who's looking to purchase the majority of those homes, clean them up themselves, and as an investment. But the phones ring every day on that property. And next phase for us is we're going to start bringing in some newer homes over the next few months. Start off next year with some new homes and start phase 2 of infilling some brand new homes there. So
in phase 1, which was this intense, kind of shock and awe campaign to improve the community, our CapEx project was probably about deploying about $530,000. The roads being a huge chunk of it. Right. And then moving the homes, which is another huge chunk of it. And then the exterior cleanup. Right. So kind of those 3 big ticket items. I mean, there were some other items that you take care of, but those were the big ticket items that filled up most of our CapEx plan. We've invested about $530,000 into doing that. So we're all in roughly about 2.1. Last month, our rent roll and recurring charges were about $18,700, about over 300% increase from where we started. And then we're going into the 1-year mark with the new people that are getting ready to onboard, with rent roll and recurring charges slated to go in at about just a little over $24,000 a month, right? So when we looked at featuring, this turnaround, this was a great place to start, because we've seen almost a 500% improvement in rent roll inside of the first 12 months. And additionally, right, we talked about moving the homes out of the other park, right, the smaller park, Town and Country. We're in the process of getting that property rezoned, right? And while we're not, we don't, our focus has always been in the manufactured housing space. We do realize that there's a higher and better use for that property. And because you have public utilities there and its location, we're looking at getting that rezoned and approved for a 120 unit garden style apartment complex that could be complementary in a community that needs housing, right, and needs affordable housing, will be complementary, where we have home ownership, right, for in the Highland Village, and then we have, you know, nice affordable rentals in town and country about 1.5 miles away. So Highland Village has been I think one of our fastest turnarounds. I think it's you know, we're still working. So for the, you know, it's not something that we could say that we finish on it. I think we always look at something, these communities that you acquire, there's always a process. There's always a way to improve it. We're constantly looking for ways to kind of tweak it, but we wanted to feature that today because we thought that for you to see the documentary and then hear this kind of some of the story behind the story, I think that's super important. But look out for that documentary on YouTube. And that's Trailer Park Turnaround is the channel for that. And you could see the progress that was made in Highland Village. And Eric, I know you spearheaded a lot of that work on that CapEx project. You did a great job there.
Thank you, Frank.
I know it was a lot of work, and you built a great team to do that. So, but you'll hear more from us next time. We appreciate you listening to the MHP Exchange Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Rizzo. My partner, Eric, where we try to bring to you information from other community owners, things that they've done, and tips that you could use to make your communities better. If you have any questions, reach out or subscribe to our channel. We look forward to hearing from you soon.